Not bad. Margarita and a can aside, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about Very Sincerely Yours by Kerry Winfrey. Because I wanted so desperately to love it. And I did not. Like, this is a 2-star read. And we're going to talk about why. Okay, so the premise of the book is a woman who just got dumped. She works in a vintage toy shop in the suburbs of Ohio. She just got dumped brutally by her good-for-nothing shit boyfriend. And she's in that weird new adult phase. Well, not necessarily new adult because she's like 30. She's in that weird area where she's like doesn't know what to do with her life. She's never had to really think about anything to do with her life because she's just lived for her relationship, and then all of a sudden her relationship ended and blinded her out of nowhere, and now she's got no place to go and she's got no direction. But she is obsessed with this children's television show hosted by this really attractive young guy who's kind of like a young Mr. Rogers. It fills her with comfort and security, and she just thinks that he's sweet and kind, and she loves his interactions with the children on the show. She just loves it. It's like an adult watching like Blue's Clues or something, or Mr. Rogers. And that's fine. But one day she's just feeling so lost that she just doesn't know what to do. So she writes into the show telling him that she's a grown woman. These are her problems, blah, blah. Just in a fit of like, emotional upheaval, she decides to just send him this email. It gets to him, he reads it, he feels for her, and they start emailing each other back and forming a relationship. Sounds fucking cute, right? Like, sounds really fucking cute, right? I'm gonna go through all the stuff that I didn't like about the book, and then we're gonna talk about I wrote how to make the book better. I basically rewrote this damn book. The writer in me, the screenwriter in me was like, no, this cannot stand. Like, this premise is really cute, and it's just being fucking buried and wasted, and I came up with a better idea. I know that is presumptuous as fuck and pretentious as fuck, and Kerry Winfrey, I am so sorry. I know this is insulting on some level for a nobody writer like myself to tell a published writer like, hey, your book sucks and I rewrote it. But we're gonna do it anyway because I really, it's there. That's the thing. It's right fucking there. Like, the book isn't terrible. It's just, I see what it was trying to be. I see it. It's right there. It just did not execute that as well as it should have, unfortunately. So yeah, we're going to talk about all the stuff that I had issues with, and then we're going to go to my what she should have done. I hope Kerry Winfrey doesn't watch those. But I'm a book reviewer. And I'm also a writer. I'm a screenwriter, so I can't help it. I wrote script coverage for a very long time when I lived in California. And that was part of your job. You have to see the things that are in a script, what can work, what cannot, and what can be improved, and how you would improve it, or how you can improve it for audiences, and all types of stuff. So, I'm also a script analyst, and a heavy book reader and a book reviewer. So, I come to this out of love. I'm not trying to completely dump and shit on this book or Kerry Winfrey, who I actually think is a good writer. I'm just clearing a pathway. That's all. That's my intention. Let's get to it. Okay, so I'm just going to, read out my damn notes. and talk a little bit about each one. And hopefully we won't be here for 1,000 years. That's the plan. But you know me and my timestamp plans. We don't go together no more, or at all. Like, that was just fantasy. Our relationship never existed. So, their letters are boring. Their emails to each other, boring as fuck. They're honest and sincere, as the title says, but they're boring as fuck. And they're supposed to be really deep and meaningful, but they don't really, in my opinion, they don't really say anything to each other. They jumped in way too quickly with revealing stuff about themselves, but also at the same time not revealing much because their letters were so fucking boring. They didn't really get into any deep, discussions or dark territories about fear or complacency or drive or lack thereof, or any of that stuff. And that's what I think Kerry Winfrey was striving for, and I felt like, and I saw it, but I didn't feel it. And I think that was my issue too, because it didn't feel, it kept telling me it was deep, but it wasn't showing me it was deep necessarily, And there wasn't enough buildup of sexual tension. It felt like after the first letter she wrote him and then next email that he sent her, they were already smitten with each other without having ever met each other. And as long as the book is, hold on, because I remember thinking, as long as this book is, there should have been way 353 pages. That's almost 400 pages. Half the book's the romance and the other half is them figuring out if they're going to end up living in the same state together. We'll get to that. So yeah, there should have been more buildup of romance and especially sexual tension. I will praise the book for this, given how cutesy the book is, the premise of it, and their occupations and what they're supposed to, and their personalities, what they're supposed to be like. I was surprised that there was mentions of sex and profanity in the book. I do appreciate that, and I understand why that's in there, or I'm assuming the reason Kerry Winfrey put that in there is because these people have these certain jobs and these occupations, just because it's she works in a vintage toy store and he is the host of a children's television show, doesn't mean they're not human. It doesn't mean that they don't flip people off in traffic, or they don't curse when they stub their toe, and they don't have sex. And I love that. I just don't like the way it was necessarily executed, and we'll get to that. Oh, okay. Again, my notes are out of order. We don't really see Everett, who is the host of a children's television show, the most popular children's television show in Ohio, interact with children. He interacts with one child towards the end of the book at a park, and they just so happen to stumble across this child. This guy's supposed to be this generation's Mr. Rogers. He's supposed to be Steve from Blue's Clues. He's supposed to be so in tune with children and so fundamental to their growing up, or at least the local children in Ohio, because he's a local celebrity. He's really big. There are instances where he's out in public and nobody really recognizes him, which is strange. And he also doesn't interact with children enough. I know it's kind of creepy to have a man walk out to kids in the park and talk to them, or them to come talk to him, or whatever, but there's a way to do it, especially given that we know who he is and what he's like. But I was really thrown off by that. We're told for 2/3, probably even more than that, of the novel, that he's so good with kids and he's so amazing and they respond so well to him. And his show is based upon kids expressing their feelings and being open about it and being able to talk about their feelings and expressing those feelings, all their big emotions, in positive ways. And we don't ever see him really interact with any kids. And when he does, it's just a kid who recognizes him at a park towards the end, who says hi to him. He says hi to the kid, and then that's it. So that was just a real letdown. One of the things that's supposed to make him the main thing that makes him attractive is how well he you know, he builds relationships with children and lets them know, you know, he's a safe person for them. And we don't ever really see that. The only child we ever see him really interact with is his sister Gretel. And his sister Gretel, I think she's like 8 or somewhere between 8 and 10. I can't remember how old she is. I apologize. But she's like this child genius. She's like really precocious. She's, you know, she's a 45-year-old woman in a child's body. And yeah, like that whole trope, that whole archetype is hilarious. I will never get tired of smart adult like children. It's seriously one of my favorite tropes in not just books, but in all types of media and books, you know, movies and TV. That's the only child we really see him interact with. And I feel, and honestly, I feel like that was interesting. His parents, you know, having this geriatric pregnancy when he's about to go to college. Like, you know, he's this 18-year-old boy about to go to college, and all of a sudden his mom, who's like in her 40s or, yeah, at the time, like 40s, ends up pregnant, and he's just like, oh man. And he gives up on his dream college to stay local to help his parents raise, you know, this child, because like they thought they were done. Like they thought he was it and that he was going off to college, and that was, you know, all she wrote. And then the mom turned up pregnant, and that's how he ended up with his sister Gretel. And I think that's really interesting, having this, you know, grown man have this very young person, this very young sibling that, you know, he loves and cares for. But it's really interesting that she's not susceptible to him and his television show, because she has this very adult brain. Regardless of that, Gretel was an unnecessary character. Gretel was an unnecessary character. If you took her out of the entire book, it wouldn't matter. So there was no point for her being there. She didn't add anything to the story, and if you took her out, she wouldn't take anything away. She was just a quirky, interesting thing that happened in the book, but she's not essential to it at all. And given that she's not essential to it at all, then I feel like she doesn't need to be there at all. So like she was just a total waste. Whenever someone has a character like that in movies or TV or books, I know, you know right away that they didn't need them. They just wanted them there. It was one of those darlings they couldn't kill. And that's what Gretel feels like. Oh God. Okay, yeah. Teddy, who, that's the name of our female protagonist. I apologize if I didn't state that earlier. Our two protagonists are Teddy and Everett. Teddy is the female, Everett is the male. Teddy has these two friends, Eleanor and Kristen, who are just tropes. They mean absolutely nothing. They are, yeah, they're unfunny, they're boring and interchangeable. I could not tell you which one was which. And it took, I think, a few chapters for them to even be physically described to me. I was like, oh, one of them's East Asian. And even then, it kind of didn't fucking matter, because they were so fucking interchangeable. They were the same fucking person. They were cliche tropes. They were fucking Judy Greer. If you know anything about Judy Greer, you know Judy Greer plays the best friend in every rom-com ever. Like that's her role, and it's so much of her role that it's kind of become a joke, and she even makes fun of it, of the fact that that's who she's been playing in movies for God knows how long. Taking a lot of margarita breaks. I don't drink that often, and by that often I mean I probably have a drink once every 6 months. And I got these margaritas in a can because I had them at a barbecue once, and they weren't bad. And I was like, oh, okay, I can drink these. So I bought some. And I thought, I don't know why, but I thought it'd be a good idea to drink this while talking to you guys about Very Sincerely Yours, knowing that my tolerance is the same tolerance as a 2-year-old. I say all this to say that this is a 5% drink, and I'm about 15% tipsy already. Should get sponsored for Big Cut Water. Anywho, yeah, Teddy's friends, Eleanor and Kristen, interchangeable, unfunny, and boring. I could tell Kerry and Winfrey was trying very hard to make them the comedic relief of the book, and they weren't. Like, she was trying so hard to make them funny and interesting, and they just weren't. They were annoying. They were so annoying. And like Gretel, they didn't need to be there. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I totally understand why they're there. Teddy needed a support system. She has a strained relationship with her mother and her sister, who are her blood relatives. So the next thing you would do as a writer, the smartest thing to do is give her a strong support system with friends. But her friends are just these archetypes. They're just tropes. And they're so tropey that they're interchangeable. I understand that what the best friend trope is in rom-coms and stuff like that. I've had too much margarita. I'm slurring my words. I'm so sorry. But I'm actually going to take another sip. It also probably doesn't help that I haven't eaten today yet. It's damn near 4 o'clock. And I haven't eaten today yet. But I did grab some Cutwater margarita. I'm going to slow down on that. Everett gets told by his producer of his show that a children's TV studio production company in New York, the biggest one out there, kind of like, PBS. Well, PBS used to do Sesame Street. I think HBO bought Sesame Street. Doesn't matter. Anyway, a children's television studio in New York, the biggest one in the country, wants to buy Everett's show and take it national. And that's always been his goal. Everett is also, by the way, a puppeteer. In addition to just being the host and creator of his television show, he's also a puppeteer. He's basically like this cross between Mr. Rogers and Jim Henson, two of his idols. And so he gets told by his producer that this major children's television studio in New York wants to have a meeting with him, and he's so excited. And he's really upset that his producer won't be coming with him. And it's just this whole thing. And this is honestly not necessarily a huge problem. It's just a technical issue I have with it. A small technical issue, which is that our producer would not tell you that. Your agent will. And that's another thing. He is the host and creator and executive producer of this children's television show. And not once is an agent or a publicist in his inner circle. Like, he doesn't interact with any of them. Like, a producer would not tell you this, an agent will. And that would make for a better dynamic of an agent telling him that and him having to break that news to his producer. Like, a major television studio in New York wants to take his show national, and his small local producer in Ohio can't come with him. That's great conflict. But having his small local producer in Ohio tell him that and be cool with it and just be like, yeah, I can't come with you, bud. Like, this is where I am, and this is where my wife and kids are, and this is where I want to stay, is sweet, but it doesn't drive the conflict. It doesn't up the stakes of the third act when the climax all comes together. So, even though I find it a small technical issue, it is also a bit of a plot issue too. Because had it been an agent, it would have been a lot better to see Everett break that news to his producer, who he has gained a really strong relationship with. Even though there is profanity and sexual innuendo and sex in it, I felt like it should have gone a little further, a little bit deeper into that. But I feel like that's a small nitpicky note. Actually, maybe it's a tonal note. Yeah, it's more of a tonal note. Another thing. I thought it was really weird that they kept emailing each other. I understood it went on for cutesy purposes, but at some point they should have just exchanged numbers and been texting and talking on the phone. Oh, okay. I would have liked it more if Everett slowly, not came out of his shell, but slowly revealed, if it was a slow burn, slow build up reveal of him being very adult male. I like the idea of he and Teddy having this very platonic, very PG rated exchange with each other, and then it building to romance. And as the romance builds, you, along with Teddy, realize, oh, this isn't just this sexless, sentient man who engages with children. He's a man of being like, oh, we've just been thinking that he's just this Ken doll of perfection that, you know, is sweet, and we've projected all this idealized romanticism onto him because of his engagement with children and his engagement with his audience and his openness, that, you know, he's just without any sort of sexual prowess. So yeah, I think it would have been better if Everett kept this very PG kind of status as the book progresses and his relationship with Teddy progresses, it sheds more and more and more, and it kind of takes Teddy by surprise, and therefore it takes us, the reader, by surprise, because we forget too, like, oh, this ain't Mr. Rogers. In the book, he swears and he makes the occasional dirty joke with his buddy, who's also a puppeteer and an executive producer on the show too. Again, I understand what Kerry Winfrey was going for with that, and letting you know that, like, he's not sexless. Like, you know, we project all this stuff onto these people who do particular jobs, but we forget that they're also very, very human and have very human lives is off camera as well. So I totally understand that it's not necessarily a criticism, it's an understanding of that, but I'd rather it have been more of a gradual reveal rather than just a flat out, like, you know, when the camera's off, he's very much a dude, you know. Teddy, her backstory is actually very interesting. So as a child, she was just this wild, crazy, impulsive little thing. And I think that's awesome. Because in the book, as an adult when we meet her, she's very reserved. She's very conservative. So, but she was just this untamed, you know, unbridled horse. And her parents were going through a nasty divorce, and she happened upon a fight that they were having one day, and she got brought up in the fight. As a kid, she internalized that, unfortunately, and it shaped her personality. But we as a reader, as adults reading it, we know that, like, you know, it's not your fault. Your father just said that as an excuse for the fact that he just fucking didn't want a family, instead of just coming out and being a man and saying that. But Teddy stumbles upon a fight her parents are having one day, and she gets brought up in the fight. And in the fight, the father says, you know, one of the reasons why he can't stick around or doesn't want to stick around is because of Teddy. Because Teddy's wild and she's crazy. She can't be tamed, and she's just, you know, her free-spiritedness is just too much for him. Like, blaming a child who's just living their best fucking life for your bullshit. Like, not being man enough to just say, hey, I don't want a family. I never wanted a family. Like, I don't know why I did this. I'm so sorry. I want to leave. Instead of just being honest and saying that fucking shit, you just start pulling excuses all out your fucking ass, and one of them is your child. One of them you, like, blame at the feet of a fucking child. And Teddy unfortunately hears that, and it happens one day after she gets into this really bad bike accident. Like, she used to love riding her bike around the neighborhood, and she'd do crazy stunts and tricks, and she unfortunately hurt herself one time and broke her arm. And her father brings that up in a fight with the mother, like, you know, and she's crazy, she can't be tamed, and blah blah, I ain't sticking around, fuck all this. So making it seem like, you know, their home life is just so unruly that he just can't deal with it. But Teddy unfortunately hears that argument, internalizes that, and takes it as, okay, dad left because of me. I was too much for him to deal with, so I need to be more like my older sister. I need to be more like other girls. I need to be more conservative, more reserved. I need to just tone it down. And she just did a 180. She decided to inhabit her sister's personality and just do whatever she did and do whatever she said, and it just became a thing with her. Like, she pretty much shed herself and just adopted whatever she thought was acceptable by society and by those standards. And her sister being one of those people that lived up to those standards and, you know, those ideals. And when her sister went away to college, Teddy just didn't know what to do, because she's like, wait, who am I supposed to pretend to be? I've been pretending to be my older sister this whole time, following her around, tagging along with her, being her shadow and her mini twin, and she's gone now. So what do I do? So she's kind of lost. So when Teddy goes to college and she meets Richard, her boyfriend, she's just kind of like, oh, okay, I'll be everything he needs. I will literally be everything he needs. And she's basically turns into his like assistant. They stop having a real relationship, and I don't think they ever had one. But she becomes this like girlfriend / assistant to him. And I know I said I'm gonna fuck off with this, but I'm a little thirsty. I really don't drink, guys. I really don't drink. So this 5% shit and not having eaten all day, it's really it's making me give me loose. So she has no identity. She has no autonomy. And so she just, you know, decides to adapt to be whatever the fuck Richard needs. His needs become her needs. His desires become her desires. And so that's why she has no idea who she is or what she wants out of life when they break up. That's why she's so devastated. That's why it kills her so much. That's why it just, you know, breaks her down so badly, is because she's just kind of like, well, not only did I lose the guy I think I loved, and I had a relationship in my home, you know, she lost her fucking shelter with him because he wanted to keep the condo, the townhouse they were living in. She also loses her direction because she was taking all her direction from him, just like she was taking all her direction from her sister, and the belief that, you know, her being good, her being like her sister would bring her dad back. So she internalized all that, and it morphed and it stayed with her through her adulthood. I thought it was a little too convenient that both Teddy and Everett lived in Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio. I thought it would have been better if Teddy was from Columbus, Ohio, but lived in New York. But yeah, I thought it was really strange that her favorite TV show, I don't know. I think it would have created more tension and would have been a lot better if Teddy was from elsewhere and just came back to Columbus for whatever reason after her breakup, and, you know, discovered Everett's show and fell in love with it there because it's a local show, instead of her being in Columbus, Ohio, knowing who he is, he living in Columbus, Ohio. It just felt a little too easy. I felt like we would have garnered a lot more tension in the story, a lot more plot, a lot more conflict. So Everett has a best friend, this black woman who's a lesbian named Natalie, which is great. But I feel like there's a lot of exposition in their dialogue with each other, and exposition is just telling and not showing. We introduced this waitress who is here for all of 5 seconds in the last third of the book, and she comes across as a better friend trope than Chloe and Kirsten. Like, where was she? She should have been here the whole fucking time. Small thing, too many E names. There's Eleanor, there's Everett, and there's Emma. I don't know, that bugs me. It will forever and always bug me. I think it's a terrible thing for writers to do. I remember once writing script coverage when I worked for a production company, and one of the scripts I gave like a straight up failing pass to, for numerous reasons, but one of the reasons was I could not stand the fact that the script, there was 2 male leads, and one was named Dave and the other one was named Daniel. It was so hard keeping track of that throughout the whole fucking script. That was annoying. And so I don't like it when characters, especially a lot of main characters, have same sounding names. Like, don't do that. Don't fucking do that. There are scenes on page 256 to 260 that aren't bad. describing his workaholic tendencies and how they're troublesome and they cause problems throughout all his relationships, romantic and platonic and familial. But I feel like we should have, basically, I don't want to be told about them. I want to see that. I don't want to be told. I don't want all the characters nagging him about how he's a workaholic. I want to see him being such a workaholic that it's causing problems throughout his relationship. Like Natalie mentions once that he was such a workaholic that he missed the first 2 hours of her birthday. He's the person that was supposed to plan the party, and there needs to be more shit like that. Because with Everett, this was his dream. He didn't stumble upon being a children's television host. It's something he's wanted for fuck knows how long, since he was a child. So his workaholic tendencies are very relatable. Speaking to someone who's had a dream since they were 10 years old, it's extremely relatable to see a character blow things off because they're focused on trying to achieve that dream. We're told he's so wrapped up in his work he forgets to eat and sleep. We're told that he's so wrapped up in his work that he comes in super early to the studio and sleeps there sometimes, and what have you, and he's blown off friends' birthdays or forgot, or forgets to have dinner with his family every Sunday like he's supposed to. So I don't want to be told these things. I want to see them. Everett gets told that this studio in New York wants to take his show nationally, and Jeremy, the co-creator of the show, doesn't want to come with him, and that makes no goddamn sense. That makes zero fucking sense. I understand what Kerry Winfrey was doing. She's trying to keep all the good things in Everett's life in Ohio, so he's forced in that third act, in that last third of the book, to make a choice between New York and Ohio. But we didn't need that with Jeremy. Jeremy should have been pressure. Jeremy should have been pressure, and Everett's relationship with Teddy should have been the conflict, the choice. It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense structurally and plot wise. Finally get Everett. We finally understand him on page 275, which is in the last third of the book. It should not have taken that fucking long for us to understand Everett as a character, to finally get him, to finally be oh, okay, finally get his backstory, finally understand him as a person and his choices and the decisions he makes and why. It took too goddamn long for that. Page 275. The book is 353 pages. That is way too long to establish a character. No. Everett is a workaholic shut-in, but is perfect at relationship. Yeah. Everett is this workaholic shut-in who doesn't eat or sleep and forgets to comb his hair half the time, but is the perfect boyfriend. And not just to Teddy. Aside from his workaholic tendencies, he was amazing at all his other relationships. All his other relationships ended because he just cared too much about children and puppets. And when he's with Teddy, she just doesn't care, and he's just amazing at it. It made no sense. Like I said, everybody's spending all this time telling us how bad Everett is, how focused he is on one thing, and how he can't focus on anything else. But he's somehow just Mr. Relationship. He is just Mr. Right, Mr. Perfect. Makes no sense. No. Conversation between Teddy and Everett on her wants and needs is good on page 288 to 289. Okay. Yeah, Teddy finally 288. Yeah, it takes that long for us as a reader to figure out what it is Teddy wants, and I get it. She doesn't even know what the fuck she wants, so it's taken her this long to get to it. Again, this is the third act. This is the last third of the book. And therefore, at this point is when Teddy herself is supposed to figure out who she is, her wants, her desires, stand up for herself. She's been working this whole book toward that. But I also get the reason it felt that way is because of all of the issues with plot and structure beforehand. Bang, I wrote Bangs, not Bob. So there's this whole joke throughout the book because after Teddy's it gets dumped by Richard, she does the classic girl thing and she cuts all her hair off. She gets a bob. However, Girls don't do bobs anymore, or I don't think they ever really have. Bobs are what happened when, like, I don't know. I always feel like breakups elicit bangs, not bobs. So that's why I wrote bangs, not bobs. I wrote what I think should have happened in the book, and I've already apologized enough for my pretentiousness with that. So we're just gonna jump right in, and I'm just gonna read it, okay? So I'm just gonna read what I think should have happened, how the book should have gone, and why I think, why I think that would have been a better route. So, hold on. I'm not going to drink on camera anymore. Jesus. Teddy is dumped by her boyfriend, Richard. He's egotistical, controlling, self-absorbed jerk. She gets to her friend's house, but is rejected by them. She blew them off for a guy for years, and now wants their love, comfort, and support, and they're just like, no. So she has nowhere to turn. In a wine-induced fit, she drives all 9 hours back to her home state in Ohio to live with her grandmother, Josie. In the book, Josie is her boss who runs the vintage toy shop. Like I said earlier, I would have liked it better if Teddy lives elsewhere, preferably like New York City, and after her breakup, having nowhere to go, she drives all the way back home to Ohio. So that's what I mean. In a wine-induced fit, she drives all 9 hours back to Ohio to her grandmother Josie's house. Teddy spends a week on her grandmother's couch in a depressive state after her mother and sister discover she's been staying with Josie and was dumped by Richard. Yeah, she's been being a depressed layabout on her grandmother's couch, rightfully so, for about a week, and then her mom and her sister discover that she's been in Ohio for a week and staying on her grandmother's couch. Her mother thinks she should work things out with Richard, while her sister Sophia pesters her about finding a job and a actual place to stay, get her girl boss on. And that was another thing. I felt like Sophia's character in the book was a lawyer and very busy and very just lean in that bullshit, and I felt like that was actually really good. A really great contrast to Teddy, who is directionless, and she has this older sister who's like on her girl boss shit. So I felt like, yeah, let's keep that. So yeah, Sophia's pestering her to get off their grandmother's couch, find a fucking job, get your girl boss on. Teddy decides to work for her sassy grandmother Josie, who runs a toy store that Teddy has always loved. In the book, Teddy loves working there. She loves being there. Josie tries to leave her the shop, and there is just chapters of Teddy trying to figure out if she really wants to own the shop or not, and people telling her whether or not she should, and oh god. But I like from the jump we get that Teddy's always loved this toy shop, and she's she used to work summers there as a kid, and yada yada yada. But her grandmother's vintage toy shop is just something that she's always had an affection for. One day at the toy shop, Everett St. James, Everett, the host of the children's television show, walks in. He helps a small child having a tantrum, buys a toy, and then leaves. Josie explains who that is to Teddy, a local children's television host. I like it better if Teddy wasn't already immersed in the show and knew who he was and had to discover who he was. Everett is an absent-minded workaholic that's been having frequent panic attacks that he tells no one about. In the book, and it never gets fucking resolved, at least in my opinion, it doesn't. It never gets resolved. As Everett is working, he's feeling this impending doom, this loss, this uncertainty. He feels like something's missing, and he feels like it's a puppet. He feels like it's a puppet on his show, and he's trying to create this puppet, but he can't have, his vision for it is like blurred, it's gray. He doesn't know how to create it, and it's just driving him crazy. And I thought that was so fucking interesting for someone who always knows what he wanted to do. He's so obsessed with it to one day just blank. like his creativity is fucking gone, and he doesn't know where it is and what's happening with it, and he starts panicking and getting upset. So I thought that would have been a lot better route than just him being like, does this puppy need a dress? Should it have curly hair or not? I should make it orange. I don't know. But like, it's touched upon that, you know, he's feeling a bit lost with this whole thing. And I think what's I feel like what Kerry Winfrey was trying to say was that what he was losing was personal connection to real people, hence his relationship with Teddy. But that wasn't enough for me. I felt like his emotional turmoil should have been unrelated to a relationship. So Everett should be like this absent-minded workaholic. Not absent-minded when it comes to work, but absent-minded when it comes to his personal relationships, like with Natalie and Jeremy and his family. You know, he missed birthdays, he missed dinner, he forgets to call, or, you know, he turns his phone off, he doesn't eat, he doesn't sleep because he's obsessed with his work. And I love the idea of this person who's obsessed with their work. All of a sudden, the thing about it that they love just vanishes. It's not that they don't love it anymore, but like they've lost their magic touch with it. And that's where the panic attacks come in. Teddy befriends Chloe, a waitress that Teddy befriends Chloe, a waitress that works the graveyard shift at a local diner Teddy frequents due to her own insomnia, due to her own restlessness and worries about her own future, and, you know, what she's going to do, because girlfriend just went through a bad breakup, drove all 9 hours to go sleep on her grandmother's couch. Her mom and her sister aren't being supportive. The friends that she thought she had, they're like, want nothing to do with her, understandably, because it's like, girl, we were homies and then you got in a relationship with this dude, or more so that, you know, this dude told you that, like, not to hang out with this anymore, and just to appease him, you said, yeah, but now that y'all broke up, you want a shoulder to cry on? Girl, nah. Yeah, I like the idea of Teddy having her own issues and resulting in insomnia, so she frequents this local diner, and the graveyard shift waitress Chloe that works there ends up becoming her friend. And that's how we can introduce a very nice friend trope, a very nice friend archetype for Teddy. Someone who gives her advice and gives her a shoulder to cry on. Sleep deprived and depressed, Teddy watches Everett's show and sends him an email about the current state of her life. Everett gets the email and writes back. Everett also at this time is working on getting the attention of the children's studio in New York. Teddy takes Everett's advice and makes a list of all the things Richard didn't let or want her to do, and decides to tick off each thing. So specific. I think that's what was my issue with what was happening in the book. It didn't feel like specific. It felt like random things. Like, I would like it more if Teddy wrote an actual list of shit he hated, stuff he didn't want her to do or let her do, and she's like, I'm doing it. I'm doing all the shit Richard didn't want to do, and I'm gonna do it happily and by myself, or with Chloe. Yeah, Chloe, her new friend, joins her on her new ventures. Meanwhile, Teddy and Everett continue emailing one another. Teddy is the only thing aside from work Everett gives his full attention to. He misses beer/poker night with Jeremy, and he misses Natalie's birthday. Those are good conflicts. Like, he fucks up a boys' night with Jeremy by not showing up and forgetting it, and he fucks up Natalie's birthday by showing up late and just, late and wrong. Teddy reveals to Everett she's Josie's granddaughter, and they start texting and calling each other instead of emailing. Yeah, Teddy eventually, after all their texting, emailing, is just kind of like, hey, you know that lady that owns the vintage toy shop? I work there. I'm her granddaughter. And so he, it's like, oh, okay, I remember there was a little boy. And that would be really cute too, if he remembered the little boy having a tantrum in the store more than he remembered her. And so she kind of has to refresh his memory of who she is. Everett's panic attacks are less frequent, and Teddy can sleep most nights now that they're engaging in this relationship. They're helping each other emotionally. They're emotionally complimenting each other. by being honest and sincere. One night, Everett and Teddy engage in phone sex. Afterwards, they go on a date, and then they go on several dates and call their relationship official. Everett gets a call from New York wanting to meet with him and Jeremy. Everett throws himself 100% into his work now. Like, once he gets that call from New York, he ceases to acknowledge anything else that happens. Maybe not purposefully, it could be a subconscious thing, but Teddy starts to see the thing that everybody was saying about him being workaholic, or him telling her, like, you know, everybody thinks I work too much and blah blah blah. And once he gets that call from New York, Teddy sees it. She's just kind of like, oh, so you forgot dinner with my family, oh, you forgot our date night, or you didn't eat all day and now you've passed out in the middle of us, you know, trick-or-treating on Halloween, because that was another thing. This story takes place in the fall. It's fall romance. Yeah, I would like that if once he gets the call from New York, Everett goes crazy with throwing himself 1,000% into, you know, preparing for this call and creating a new puppet and, you know, new standards for his show. And Teddy sees what everyone was saying about Everett, like, oh shit, no, he gets, you know, obsessively, you know, absorbed into his work. Yeah, Everett gets a call from New York wanting to meet with him and Jeremy. Everett throws himself 100% into his work, forgetting dates with Teddy, who is upset. Josie wants to finally retire and hand the store over to Teddy. Teddy is excited and can't wait to be the new owner. She hasn't figured out what she wanted this whole time, and then her grandmother kind of figured it out for her, and it clicks for her. It, you know, she's just kind of like, oh my god, why didn't I think of this? Why didn't I realize this? There's nothing I love more than no job I've ever loved more than working at this fucking store. It's not even just the nostalgia, it's just I love doing this. And it also complements Everett's job. He works with kids, she sells toys to kids. Like so, you know, she's super excited that her grandmother wants to retire and leave the store to her. She tells Everett, who is upset. He wanted Teddy to come to New York with him. She says, she says no. They get into a fight and break up. She can't be in service to another boyfriend, and he can't give up on his dream. That is the conflict. That is the third act climax. You can't tell me that doesn't work better, especially given who they are and what we've established as their characters. You know, she can't be in service to another fucking boyfriend. She cannot drop everything. She cannot change herself. She cannot uproot her whole fucking life for another boyfriend. And he cannot give up on a dream he's had since he was a child. And that is going to be the hardcore conflict of their relationship and the third act. Like, that's what I mean by, like, a stronger third act conflict. Her saying no and being like, I can't do this again with another boyfriend, and him being like, well, this is my dream, I can't give up on this, and their relationship having to end because she's figured out her wants and he's got what he wants, and it's just, unfortunately, you know. Oh, Teddy tells Josie and Chloe that though she has to choose herself for once, and they agree, and so she decides to take ownership of the toy shop. Everett has his meeting in New York. He and Jeremy go. Before the meeting, he has a panic attack and calls Natalie. And Natalie does her best friend thing. Teddy talks with her mother and explains her current situation and why she turned into such a doormat after her parents split. She explains, you know, she heard the fight with them and that she feels like she's the reason her dad left and yada yada yada, and why she changed her entire personality to be more accommodating, especially to men. She thought it was her fault for being so wild and decided to just be the person whoever she was with needed, like I said. Her mother explains the divorce was not her fault and she was just afraid Teddy would be alone like her, which is why she was telling her to go back to Richard. She realizes that was horrible, terrible advice, but she just didn't want her daughter to be alone the way she is, and therefore she didn't know what else to say or do, so she was just kind of like, maybe you should just go back to Richard because he's security. Everett comes back to Ohio and talks with Teddy. He convinced the producers, the studio heads of the children's television network, to let him keep shooting Everett's place in Ohio, on location in Ohio. Yeah, so Everett, tells they want to buy his show, they want to make it national, they want to put it in syndication, all that kind of stuff. And Everett's like, awesome, one condition, I get to keep shooting the show on location in Ohio. And he also explains to Teddy why the show means so much to him, why he's such a workaholic about it, why he's so obsessive about it, why he cares so much about children, and educating them on their feelings and expressing themselves in positive ways. And that is because as a kid he had a hard time expressing himself without violence. He was a very violent kid, and he grew up in a very, I don't want him to grow up in a very violent home, but I would like it if his father had this very alpha male perspective, this very toxic masculinity perspective on how boys should express themselves and say things and do things and handle situations. And Everett did that to the point of violence, until he was forced into counseling and discovered puppetry. So he was, wild, bad child that was fought anybody that looked at him sideways. And in order to avoid legal trouble, like being thrown in juvie, or CPS getting involved, or social services coming to his house and monitoring him because of all the physical altercations he got into as a little boy. And he was put into counseling, and that counselor helped him discover puppetry as a way of expressing himself and saying things that he felt like he couldn't say. And that started his love of children's psychology, education, and puppetry. He wants to show kids it's okay to feel your feelings and be healthy about it. He loves her, he loves Ohio, and he loves Jeremy and Natalie and his show and his family. He loves that she found herself there in Ohio, and he found her too. She loves him too. They make up and they get back together. And then in the epilogue, Teddy is pregnant with her toys displayed on Everett's show. Yeah, so I think, in the epilogue in the book, he proposes to her on her birthday. I think I would have liked it more if the epilogue was him doing an episode of Everett's Place, and she was like a guest on the show, introducing this new toy that's going to be at her toy shop in Ohio. And as she's explaining the toy and everything, we discover that she's very pregnant. So yeah, that is how I would have written this book. That is how I would have written Very Sincerely Yours by the lovely Kerry Winfrey. Again, this book is only 2 stars because the potential, the framework, it's like a house. The framework is there, and therefore I pretentiously wrote out okay, I was about to say better. I wrote out a different version of how I think this story should have gone. I love the premise for this book. I couldn't fuck with the execution. And as a screenwriter, I couldn't help myself but, figuring out how it could have been different. This is on my September TBR. I'll briefly mention it on my wrap up at the end of the month. But as of right now, these are my thoughts and my feelings on your very sincere. I had to look at it. I was about to call it Yours Sincerely Yours. Too much margarita mix. That's it. That's all I've got to say about that. I hope you enjoyed my tipsy review of Very Sincerely Yours by Kerry Winfrey. Wash your hands, wash your face, moisturize your feet, wear a mask, get vaccinated, have a good fucking day. I love you guys so much. Bye.